But I just realized that it's been on mute. I'm so sorry. And there's no audio, but we're okay. We're back now. Hello. You know I will start the shows. It's welcome to the Race Driver Coach Show. This is Enzo, your host. So I just wanted to say, and I've said it already, so if you can lip read, perfect. You know exactly what I'm saying. I'm sorry for repeating myself. But I'm going away for 20 days. We're going to the F1 weekends. And I want to do this show a little bit different because I'm away too long and I always feel guilty. Whenever I'm not recording, I feel like I've not put any value into these people that are subscribing. Thousands of you now, and thank you everybody, because this is a journey. You keep me going, and as long as you keep subscribing, I'm going to keep giving back, obviously. So I want to do something different, and it's going to be a show that is live, and we're going to talk about the kind of thing that is on everybody's mind, and it's in who wants to go to F1, is how much is it going to cost? And I'm shocked by the amount of drivers, and you can imagine this, I'll talk about this in a business world, but can you imagine going to F1, going for any big goal, but you don't even ask the question of how much it's going to cost? What do I need to do? We're all worried about the first step, but we haven't got a clue about, do you know the horizon and how difficult it is to get to bloody F1? Yet people are throwing it out flippantly. Enzo, I want to get to F1. Can you tell me how to do it? Can you help me do it? Can you do it for me, pretty much? But you've got to understand the reality of getting to Formula 1. There's not many drivers in there, about 20. Not many drivers in the world out of the thousands, maybe tens of thousands of drivers that make it, but we sort of still don't really tell ourselves why, or ask ourselves why. It's because it costs a bloody fortune. And on top of that, you've got to be absolutely exceptional in all the different areas to get there. And on top of that, you've got to be connected to the kind of people that can give you a shot, because there's plenty of drivers out there that are worthy of F1 that are much better than the drivers that are in F1. Not all of them, but they deserve to be there. But they didn't get the chance because they didn't know the right people. Then on top of that, another layer is your timing has got to be impeccable. It's got to be perfect. The time that you reach that F1 kind of level, there happens to be an opening up. Whether it's a driver getting injured, whether it's just someone's run out of money, whether someone's got fired, whether you're in the firing line yourself and you just managed to get there, or you bump into someone at the airport, or they see your results, or they see you on YouTube by accident and they're like, oh, I might give that driver a chance. There's so many stars that have got to align for you to get into F1. It's ridiculously hard. And people just say, oh, you just need money to get there. Yeah, it helps. It really does help, but you've also got to be quick, because if you get up there and you're not really that good, you're going to get found out. So everybody that poo-poos, all these drivers with money and just, oh, it's easy for them. I'm not going to mention any names, but you know, because you've seen it. It's harder than it looks. It's not just a case of having the cash. Otherwise, every billionaire, every millionaire would be a driver if they wanted to, and there's a lot of them that want to. So I want to put the record straight by saying, this is how much it costs. Right? If you want to look at the bare facts of pretty much you turning up at a race team and saying, or calling them up, saying, how much does it cost? They're going to tell you the figures that I'm going to tell you now. All right. So I'm going to give you kind of the top line sort of going rate. If they don't know who you are, if you're kind of a okay driver, not exceptional, these are the prices I'm going to give you. And then after that, I will start the first part of the show. Then the second part of the show, we're going to get more solution-based, because I'm going to shock you with these figures and you'll be like, oh, great. How am I going to get that kind of money, Enzo? But then I want to, obviously, as you know, probably Jack Hawksworth is going to join us. And he is somebody who's made it not to F1, but he nearly did, actually. But not to F1, but he's a pro driver, making a living. Got to IndyCar for 3 years. And he's going to tell us his story, how he did it, because he couldn't afford it. A working class guy, kid, who him and his dad really carved a future for him in karting. Then he met Chris Harfield of WH Sports, who then helped him get into the bigger leagues. But it took a lot of work. I mean, we're not really doing it justice when we talk to these drivers that made it with no cash, because it was turmoil for them. They lived with nothing for many years, but they didn't care. And that's what it's going to take if you haven't got money. You're going to have to find somebody who has, or you're going to have to create value to someone who can open up an opportunity for you to get in the car. But at the end of the day, you've also, don't forget the sports side of this, you got to be quick. So I want to just cover that first. Now, the karting, as you know, I'm not a karting expert. So I talked to my friend, Giacomo Scarboza. I don't know if he's watching this. And he told me the kind of going rate prices. Obviously, again, there's different prices each depending on who you are and your skill level. But that's what we're going to do. First of all, we're going to cover the costs. Then we're going to get solution based. And at the very end, as I'm watching, because some of these videos are pre-recorded, I'm watching your questions come in. I'm going to answer them at the end or in between the videos. So please, if you've got any questions on anything you see here, type them down in the chat and I'll have a look and then answer the ones that are applicable and I feel like I can answer. Okay, so first off, what I want to do is I want to give you a price breakdown. So this is pre-recorded because this is all what the show was going to be before I decided it was going to be live. So I'm going to ask Enzo now, how much does it cost to get to F1?
Now this is obviously a question that is nearly impossible to answer because it depends on what age you start. It depends on how much cash you've got. If you've got sponsors, if you've got raw speed, and you are one of the fastest kids on the block. Because then the price depends on how much cash you've got. And if you've got things, if you skip years, you can do 1 year in F3 and then move on to F2. You don't need to do 2 in each. So I've just kept it basic and sort of like the law of averages. So if you look at the spreadsheet now, it starts on the left over here. You have 8 years old, 9, 10, 11, and I've pretty much said you're going to get to F1 by the time you're 22. All right? So say if you're just following that age kind of bracket there. You do about 2 years in each class. So I would say 8 years old, you start off on that, and you're only 8 years old, you still want to be in one of the top championships for that kind of kart. So, believe it or not, we're going to do it all in euros. For one season, it's going to cost you 60,000. And what I've done is I've just down here, you can see I've done a total, subtotal a minute, but a full total. Every time we put something in here, it affects the bottom figure.
So 60,000, and there you are. You're an 8-year-old, and you're so lucky because you got somebody spending that much. And that covers everything, right? That's just arrive and drive. That's all the suit. It's all the coaches that are there. If you've got a coach within the team, it's the team personnel. They take everything there. You just turn up, rock up, and race. And quite often, it's virtually every weekend. So it's difficult for schooling for these kids. Right, let's just say you do 2 years in that formula, okay? So it's going to cost the same the second year. If your results are good, then obviously that price comes down. But let's just say you pay 60 and 60, and so far that means we're spending in the first 2 years of your racing 120,000. If you've got like external people, like somebody who's chaperoning you around, like some kind of coach or anything, obviously that's going to be added on top. But 60k covers it and it's pretty much all there. Right, then after that, you're feeling pretty good, you're doing pretty good. You move up to Mini and WSK. Then it could be plus the Italian British Championship, right? It goes up a little bit. Now we're talking doing pretty good. 100k. You move up to Mini, do that and WSK for around 2 years as well. Plus the Italian. So then you go to OK Junior, right? It goes up. OK Junior. Now we're talking pretty good. Another leap. You move up to Mini. That 150,000, and you're going to do that for 2 years. I think I did that right. Didn't put 15,000. Now OK Junior, you're doing WSK, CIK. You're in Europe. You're traveling everywhere. You're still only what, 12, 13 years old. You're starting to think about cars now. You could actually start to test really privately if you wanted to. But I'm just saying this person who's now spent 620,000 wants to continue for another 2 years in karting. They want to go to OK, it's WSK, CIK, so many initials. So we go back here now, and this is going to cost about the same, believe it or not. Not such a leap. So at the minute we paid 770,000. You're now 15 years old. And definitely now you're thinking of cars. Now some people continue after 15 years old in karts, but they often get picked up, they often get free drives or even paid a little bit, and they stay in karting until 17, 18 years old. So you can stay on, but obviously with this person, this fictitious person who's on this plan right now, we're going to say they're going to go to F4 for 2 years. So it's going to be German or Italian F4, sometimes both. It gets really expensive. Now, it's around about 350,000 per year for F4. And if you want to do the German and the Italian, it's around 650. Now, obviously, this is dependent on what team you go with, but if you want to go with a team that's going to win, they're going to charge you that much. And again, you might get a better deal in the second year. But at the minute now, folks, you're only in your second year, right, of cars, and you're at 1.6 mil. So now we're going to move up to F3. F3, we're talking around about, can be more. You know, there's people paying more than this, by the way. 800,000 euros. 800,000 euros to do like 10 rounds. It's expensive. They can name their price. They can keep pushing it until someone says, oh, it's a bit too much, but they can go very high. Now, you can get a drive in F3 for probably 400 because the team will subsidize it. Maybe free. Well, I've had drivers that have paid, it was GP3 back then, but they paid less than they would for a Formula Renault seat. So there's different deals, but remember what we're saying here. We're sticking to the general format. Right, then we're talking about F2. Now, F2 is really, it just, the variety is amazing, right? So we're going to say, I think that's the right amount of zeros. No, it's not. Doesn't want too many because that's 16 mil. It's not 16 mil to do F2. It's 1.6. Okay, so we're going to do that for 2 years, should we say? In you go. So now you can see we've pretty much done it. We've pretty much done all of the way up to F1. It's going to cost around about 6.5 million euros. How are you going to find it? Well, I think you hopefully you're not too shocked. I'm well, first of all, sorry about all the audio I'm getting, audio feedback. Hopefully it's okay. Somebody tell me now if it's okay on the audio, or if not, give me a shout in capital letters, but I think it's all right now. I think we got all right. It is a small price to pay, somebody said. A small price to pay for F1, but how are we going to do it? Because if it's 6.5 million, but I mean, you've got to have a coach as well, or you've got to have a manager, or you've got to have a fitness trainer. So you're talking another 70k on each year as well. And I think I added that up, and that's another probably 500,000 on all the kind of things that are going to be around it. And you've got flights, you've got insurances, your gear. So it just mounts up. That's just to pay the team to get you there on the grid. There's loads of other stuff. And also the personal. The sacrifice that you make, but obviously you're all prepared to do that. So your relationships are in turmoil, you're living away from the family, so it is a big thing. And I know everybody says, oh, I don't care, it's F1, I'll do it, but it's a big ask, and you can't overcome or even lose perception of you must be winning in these categories, really. And somebody said there, it's interesting that the price goes down if you do perform well. And it does, because race teams, if they see that you're really quick and all they've got to do is put you in their car or their kart, then they're going to promote their business. They're going to look like they're the team that are at the front, and that's valuable to a team. And you've heard me say it before, you've always got to create value for the people that are going to open up the opportunity for you to get in that seat. If you've got speed, that's currency. If you've got a good attitude, that's a little bit more currency. You're easy to work with. Teams will want to help you. And that still exists all the way up from karting to F4, F3, F2, and even F1. They want the right person. And still, when you're selling to anybody in business, it comes down to their logical thinking of how we're going to pay this. And does it make financial sense? But then just tipping it over the edge is the person. If they want you to succeed themselves as well, they want you to do well, they want to help you, they know you deserve it, they'll go that extra mile, and they'll do what they can to make sense of the figures. So it's really important. That's why it's one of the reasons why I had Jack Hawksworth on, because that's somebody who, when he's in your team, you know he's going to be stupidly quick. He's rapid. But also, you know he's going to work hard. He's there till 10 at night looking at the data going through. The engineer's now gone to work on the car and do stuff, but he's still there smashing that laptop away. and doing everything he can to extract everything out of the car. What's the teammate doing? In every corner, he goes deep, 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 and he's there to work. And he doesn't care. He's living in a box right now. In this interview you're going to see, he's got no furniture in there. He's in America, in Charlotte at the moment, and he showed me around the flat, and there's no furniture. He's just sitting on a stool. I'm not saying that he's broke at all, but it's just, he doesn't care. He doesn't need the fancy stuff. He's there to race, and he'd prefer it that way. He's a warrior. And I'm not just blowing his trumpet. That's something you find out about all drivers. In fact, even, and a lot of you don't think this, but even Lewis Hamilton, because of the perception he's got from the outside, of you thinking he's just after the money, he's glitz and glamour, he is a workhorse. He's really spiritual as well, because I used to work with his fitness trainer, so I know firsthand. 2 fitness trainers actually I've worked with, and he's an animal. He doesn't show that side of him, which is really annoying to me, but he is. When you go toe to toe with him, it's a fight. Ask any of his teammates on the way up and there. So don't fool yourself into thinking that he's just a glitz and glamour driver. Oh no, he will eat you alive. He's there for a reason. And you don't win that many championships. So that's another part of it. Getting to F1, you've got to be made of metal. You've got to be made of the stuff that you can put up with. It's just like a boxer, a fighter, a champion. And someone who is a champion consistently, they're doing something different and more. And you, from the us, from the outside, we don't see that. But I've had the privilege of working next to these people and seeing them firsthand. And it's shocking. And you can see it straight away. You've probably heard me say that you know as soon as you shake a champion's hand and look them in the eye, there's something about them. And that's something that F1 teams and manufacturers, not just F1, Formula E, which is going to be huge in the future. It is big now, but it's going to keep growing. As more and more as more and more countries stop using fossil fuel cars, it's going to get bigger because manufacturers need that technology and they need to show themselves at the front. Motorsport is now going back to what it was in the 50s on the electric side. But also the WEC, the GTs, the Indy cars, the NASCARs, all these people, the people that win over and over again, it's there. So don't overlook that. But bringing it back to money, it's about time we started to get solution-based, because that kind of cash is just ridiculous. How are you supposed to get that? How? I just want you to write down now. I don't care if you haven't got a pen and paper. You put it on your phone. Even if you're watching this, put me to the side and write down a plan of how you're going to get together in the next, depending how old you are, in the next few years, up to 6.4 if you're 8 years old. But if you're like 17 years old, you haven't got as far to go, but you still got to find a good 5 mil, 6 mil to get there. Euros, dollars, even more in some places. How are you going to do it? Don't just dream. Start to get practical. Start to think, how am I going to get in that car? How am I going to win? How am I going to get to F1? How am I going to become pro? How did other people do it? You've got to find this out. This is your bloody mission. No more researching about what other drivers are saying and stuff. Get rid of social media and double down on hard graft work. No more dreaming. This has got to be you taking action of, this is serious. I've got a bit of leeway in COVID time at the minute because everyone's up shit at the minute, right? Everyone is like, even drivers that have got seats are losing seats because their sponsors are pulling out. So it's a bit of a strange year. But 2021, I want you to have an answer. Actually, in the next bloody week, I want you to have an answer of how you're going to do it. But by 2021, you've got to have executed on something that's going to get your goal. And I know we're talking about F1 here, but there's some people that have been listening to this that are even over the 22 age that are put on this price at the minute. They're probably 32 and they still want to make it as a pro driver. Well, we better get busy then, haven't we? If you're starting from 0 at 32, it is still possible to make money racing, but you better get a move on. You better come up with a good plan. So now I want to go to Mr. Hawksworth. We pre-recorded it, but only just, and it's about 20 minutes long. But if you listen to him, he will tell you a few truths, tell you a few things that he actually did to make it pro, 3 years in IndyCar and all that. So I think you can take something from this. And what I want you to do is put some questions down on the chat, on the live chat as we're going, and then we'll answer them afterwards. Okay, enjoy. Here we go.
So right, Jack, as you've seen, I've just sent you a file now. that tells you exactly what I've just told the drivers, and you probably just saw it on the show. So I know that this is top line prices, and this is kind of like the market. If you go to a team and you say, right, my son wants to race with your team, it's the best team. Can you look after him? Take care of everything and survive and drive. These are the kind of prices I did.
But then obviously you text me or messaged, commented, and said, actually, the prices that are being out there at the minute, everyone's just shooting for the sky, when actually you can do it for a lot lower. So I thought, shit, man, I've got to get you on the show, because it's the second part of this live show is to show people solutions and give them examples of people that actually did it without paying these silly prices. So the shock of this is how much it costs to get to F1, which is millions, which is still the case. Obviously, someone's got to pay that. But the karting side, you were specific about, yeah, I want to bring this to the truth. So hello and welcome. And what do you think then when you see these prices that people have thrown around?
Well, I mean, I have spent a long time in the karting world, and I think coming from a situation where I've raced for I've raced for factory teams in karting. I've also, done the dad and lad thing. I feel like I have a pretty, I guess, good idea about the industry and an overview of what the costs are and what it takes to be competitive in that world. And the reason I messaged you was I've seen a lot recently people kind of dragging karting into the same kind of world as single seaters, and obviously there is a connection there. It's been a breeding ground for many some successful racing drivers in the past. It still is today, and that's great. But at the same time, it is still a sport in its own right. And the beauty of karting is you can be very competitive on a budget. You can be very competitive doing it on your own. Mm-hmm. It only takes one mechanic to run a go-kart. It's not like a car racing team where you need a lorry and 5 people there to run a Formula Renault car or whatever it is.
Yeah, totally.
You don't need all of that stuff. So it is still very possible to be competitive. I think the prices there which you've quoted are very much the highest level, and turn up with your kid, little Johnny or whoever it is, and look after my kid for the year.
Yeah.
The teams want to make money as well, right? So they're charging a premium on that. And that isn't actually the cost that they're spending to go racing. That's the cost that they're charging you, basically. So I mean, my experience in karting was I started off when I was 12, and I think I was very fortunate as well. And this is probably where my perspective is a little biased. Is I had a dad who was super supportive of what I wanted to do, but was also very mechanically minded.
A lot of dads are. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's old school, right? Like a lot of that generation. I guess like my dad's generation, they loved bikes and cars and worked on their own cars and worked on their own bikes and all this kind of stuff. So when I started racing cars, he was super keen to be involved. And he wanted to be the one mechanicking on my car and driving me to the races and stuff like that. So, I mean,
I bet they were good times, actually, mate. Really were.
They were the best times. I loved karting. That was the beauty of it. Is every weekend, Friday after school, or Saturday morning, we'd set off to the track and practice and race, and then the following weekend you had another race, and you do it all again. And
mega! And it's just raw, isn't it? It's raw. It's not like there's no BS anywhere, or not as much, should I say? Even though there's lots of racing dads, but that's the same as Liam Lawson's a driver I work with now, and he was with his dad in the early days, and they saved a fortune doing it that way. They couldn't have done it otherwise. Working class family, like everyone, like most people. And Ocon, same thing with him, another past driver, and he was living in a caravan with his dad, who was a second-hand car salesman, and they did everything themselves before they got picked up. Both of them, actually, these drivers got picked up. One Gravity, and then Mercedes, and Liam with Red Bull. So it's valid, and they haven't spent anywhere near the prices I just quoted.
No, exactly, and I mean, not even close. And I actually think, in many ways, there is an advantage to it as well. In that, a lot of these, I call it smoke and mirrors, really. Like a lot of these teams, with the big awnings and the big trucks and stuff, which you see at kart meetings. When you go to a race team, you're paying for 2 things. You're paying for the transportation of the vehicle and set up at the track, and then most importantly, you're paying for their knowledge, whether that be their knowledge with driving, whether that be their knowledge with kart setup, carburation.
Yeah.
So that's where your value is, right?
Yeah, but definitely.
Just because they have a fancy awning and they have nice team shirts and things like that doesn't actually mean they know anything.
Mm-hmm.
And coming from someone who's been on both sides of the fence, I can tell you that actually doing it on your own, and it takes many years and a lot of practice and stuff like that. Actually learning about it yourself and beginning to understand, how to set up a car and set up an engine and carburation and stuff like that. In many ways, you can do a better job than the big teams, and you also learn. You learn a lot more as well, which when you get to the higher levels actually makes a difference, because a lot of people, if you just write a check and turn up and drive, you never actually really learn about the mechanics of the vehicle and about what you want to do with the car or how to set it up. And it's all stuff that applies with racing cars as well. So there is value in actually trying to learn about it yourself and going about it in a privateer manner. And for 99% of the karting world, I don't know what it's like now, quite like now, because obviously I don't do as much of it. But when I was growing up and racing in karts, most of the paddock was like that. Yeah, there was a few big teams and some drivers would be with these big teams, but most of them at Super 1 level, national level, would be privateers. You'd turn up with your van and you would work with your mechanic or your dad or whoever you were working with, and it was a small team working together to try and get the job done. And there's no reason that still doesn't apply to karting today, because nothing's changed. It's just a frame. There's no magic with the frames. You buy a Tony kart, a CRG or whatever. They're all very, very similar. And then really where the difference is in your knowledge, in your knowledge with carburation, jetting the engines and setting up the chassis. You just got to learn about that. But
you can jump in, can't you, in a big team, and they'll just say, right, this cart is a top 5 cart, so you got to do the rest, and you just drive and they tell you. So that's the good thing. There's no trial and error, but I know what you mean. And it's the same in cars in a way. I didn't think this would ever relate to cars, but not too long ago, it's probably 10 years ago now, a bit more. Tim Bridgman came to Formula BMW, him and his dad, with a van, 7.5-ton truck, turned up into a TOCA touring car meeting. So you're thinking, you're taking on the big Vortex and Carlins, everyone's there. And they won the championship. And BMW them days was a big formula. You went somewhere if you won it. So I know you can't do it in F2, F3 nowadays, but still there's championships out there where you can actually even run a car in the same mentality. You've got a good mechanic, there's lots of them, someone who knows how to engineer the car, and a good driver. This is something we've got to not miss out. Something you've got, which you never mention, you never will, but I can because I'm not you, is that you're bloody quick and you work really hard and you know everything about a car, really. You study it. That's something that there's a bit of an elephant in the room that a lot of drivers don't, and they'll get to F2 and they still haven't got a clue of the differential settings of the car and what it really does and what it feels like. You're like, man, you've been racing for 10 years and you still don't know the basics. You're so used to a team just saying, what is it, understeer? Okay, don't worry, I'll fix it. Try that. And that's it. So then they get to F1 and their mind is blown because they've got all the pressure of performing, but then they've got to become an engineer. And not many actually can swim in that.
No, completely, mate. If you're always being told just to drive the car and, these are the changes we make, how do you ever learn? You don't, right? Like the beauty of what happened to me coming up is me and my old man, we learned everything together, right? So as we started karting, we were both fresh-faced, didn't know anything. We went to the track, no clue about nothing. And then just from years and years of doing it, club level, national level, then moving on to international level, doing it together, you learn stuff, right? You speak to people, you pick up on things, whether that be, driving technique, whether it be about the engines, the cars, all of this kind of stuff. And then you build up a knowledge base, and eventually that's where you're valuing it. That's where you become valuable, right? Because knowledge is value.
To a team,
it's massive. Really interesting. You bring up the point about the Formula BMW series, and when was it Tim Bridgman you said? Because I remember when I moved into car racing at the end of 2019, and I kind of fell for the trick of it a little bit as well, where,
where was this, 2009?
Oh, 2010, sorry, when I was 19.
Yes, yeah. Oh, you were 19, yeah.
Yeah. So I remember at the end of that year, we went and did the Formula Renault Winter Series.
Matt, I wanted to bring this up, and I nearly forgot because I was there.
Yeah, I remember you being there actually. Yeah. But I remember before we did that series, I remember speaking to my dad, and I don't know how I even got to the point where I wanted to go car racing, because at the time, when I was 18, 19, all I wanted to do was be a professional go-kart driver.
Wow.
So I kind of, not really even thought too much about the racing driver path.
Yep.
But somehow we ended up sat down one day, and I must have, wanted to, there must have been a part of me which wanted to see if I could, if I could do it in a car and what it was all about. And I remember we were sat there and my dad was saying, we could do this on our own, if, that might be the best way to do it. It might be the most cost effective, and it might also be the best. I could learn about the car and we could go do it. And I remember thinking to myself, we've done the karting, but these car teams, they're different level. They're huge. But actually, I went and did the Winter Series and have obviously gone on to race for a lot of teams over the years and whatnot. And actually thinking about it, that might have been a good strategy, because when you do it yourself, you're more in control. You're in control of your own destiny in a way. And
it's entrepreneurship 101. Setting up a business or getting your dad to set it up for you. And there you go. You can run that company. 2 different people come out of that. Completely different people. Someone who's made it and built it, or someone who gets gifted it and has to look after this company. It's exactly the same as a race driver. The skills you learn become very valuable to a manufacturer as well. Because if you're just a dumb, I've got understeer 4 out of 5 at this certain corner, and that's all you can really give on the feedback side, and that's bit. But that, going back to that day, Snetterton, I remember, I think it was the only one I came to. I turned up because I was with Stanaway as part of Gravity, and Kvyat was there, right? Science and all that lot. And then this massive name across the top in P1, I think it was pole position, Hawksworth. I was like, who the hell is that? And I was some northern kid. And that's all I was told, because I never heard of you before, because I'm just cars. Yeah. And it's like, and little did I know that you then joined, or you were already with Chris at WH, good friend of mine, a business partner anyway. So yeah, small world, but I tell you what, it was a shock. And I really wish, because I was so busy with Stanaway, I wish I should have put your name in the hat. But then again, Gravity only lasted about 2 years after that anyway, so it wouldn't have got you far.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how things work out, right? But it is like this racing kind of journey, which we're all on, is very much like a roller coaster. It's up and down, and it leads you to all these strange places and strange parts of the world and things like that. I mean,
it really does. So before I go back to the live show, after karting, you still haven't got millions in the bank, but you made it to IndyCar. So this is something interesting, because I've told everyone the route to F1, the price. I might do the same one for IndyCar one day, but there's lots of options, and actually you can possibly go to F1 from IndyCar. It's not a complete impossibility. But how did you manage that in 1 minute? How can you sum it all up? I don't know, but tell us about that.
I mean, to sum it up quickly, as we spoke about, I went and did the Formula Renault Winter Series. It was kind of a last-minute decision to, I'm 19 years old. This is going to be, if I'm going to have a go at it, I need to have a go at it now, kind of thing.
Yep.
So we took a punt. I went and ran the Winter Series in Formula Renault. Finished 3rd in that series, and like you say, it went very well. And then the following year, we went all in on Formula Renault. My old man, made a lot of sacrifices really to do that. He remortgaged his house and crazy things like that. So you've got to, I think a lot of the story behind it really is I've always had a parent who's, been willing to support me 100% to the brink with everything, right? So
amazing.
We went all in on that. Finished 4th, but then at the end of the year, then came a crossroads really. What do we do next? Chris Harfield, who you touched on earlier, he put the plan together to go to America, where there was a scholarship system at the time called the Mazda Road to Indy. They offered a free scholarship to the series above.
Yep.
He also introduced me to a couple of people who have become very, heavily invested in my career, and to this day, I still work with. set up a company. I sold shares in myself and sold shares in the company.
Yeah.
To this day, I'm still, every year when I take a salary, I still kind of give a cut. There's still a large cut which goes to those people who helped me at the beginning of my career. And went and raced Star Mazda for the best team at the time, which was Team Pelfrey. Won the championship. That gave me the step up to Indy Lights. The following year, won 3 races and finished 4th that next year.
Should have won that.
Should have, could have, but again, we could be here all day with stories from that year, to be honest. But, that was an interesting one. And then the following year, last minute, February, just before the IndyCar season was about to start, a seat opened up with Brian Herter Autosport. As I was speaking about the investors at the time, there was Brian had a small gap to fill with his budget. He was very much on the ropes as a team at that point, and we were able to fill that with the selling the shares in myself. Did a test. They were really happy with me. Then we went and raced in the IndyCar series in 2014.
Yeah, brilliant.
The beginning of that season went very well. I almost won my 4th race, and I qualified in the top 5 or 6, I think 3 or 4 times in the first 6 races. So that was obviously kind of my arrival in IndyCar, and then that was what enabled me to then get a professional contract in IndyCar for the following 2 years in 15 and 16, where I was earning a salary. And actually, incidentally, another story in 2014, which leads me to where I am today, is in the middle of 2014, a guy called Paul Gentilozzi, who would later become my team boss and a good friend of mine. He had an opening in one of his LMPC cars in the IMSA series at the time. The IMSA series. One of his drivers, Alex Tagliani, had been suspended for a race. I just nearly won the Indy Road Course race in IndyCar, so he reached out to me, which is where IMSA were racing the Indy Road Course circuit. Reached out to see if I'd be able to do this race, but it didn't clash with an IndyCar race. Anyway, that weekend went really, really well. And I won the race along with Chris Cummins, and then from that point on, I kept in touch with Paul.
Every Daytona, wasn't it?
DC when I could, and then 3 years later, he got the contract to run the Lexus cars in IMSA. This was 2017, which was just after I'd come to the end of my contract with AJ40, who I was racing with in IndyCar at the time. And here we are, 4 years later, still driving for Lexus in the IMSA series. So
even in a NASCAR.
And in NASCAR, last year I went to a NASCAR race at Mid-Ohio, and in fact, I was supposed to do another one this year, which would have been on an oval, which we'll see if that happens or not. But the whole COVID thing did put kind of threw that one up in the air a bit. But definitely more opportunities on that side, I think, as well.
A few things just strike me there. Our timing is really important, obviously, and you can't control that. But if you leave, the second thing I'm thinking of, a lasting impression with the team, and they see you as like you're the one. It's amazing how that person, even if it's a mechanic, it's on your front wheel, on your front right, it's all they do. They see something in you. That mechanic could become like a Trevor Carlin one day, could become a team owner one day. And then they say, Jack is the man, or whoever it is. So it's like you're on a job interview every single time you touch the track. And it's not like you're faking it to fit in. It's like if you deserve it somehow and you keep pounding away, somehow things just align one day and you get your shot. If you're lucky.
100%, yeah. You've got to just...
You can't write that either.
Yeah, and it is timing, and it is being in the right place at the right time, but also taking your opportunities when they come as well, So, and even just a big picture as well, like, when I was racing in 2014 in the IndyCar series, and the opportunity to do the LMPC race came up, it was, at the time, I was kind of focused on the IndyCar route, right?
Easy to say no.
Going, easy to stay at home, or easy to, have not, because if I'd have gone there and got my ass whooped by Bruno, Bruno Junqueira, who was in the car with us, or something like that, then I wouldn't have got invited back, right? And as it went, it was a good day for me. And then 3 years later down the line, when I was looking for a rock to kind of, climb onto after the IndyCar thing, I'd had a bad season in IndyCar. That rock was there, and then I rebuilt my career from that point. So that relationship which I built with Paul and with his guys, and just off that one day,
man,
has then led me to the point I'm at now, which is, you know, still racing, you know, in one of the highest profile series in the world, you know, for a great manufacturer and a great team. So.
And what age are you now? How old are you now?
I'm 29 now. So.
Oh man, you got loads of time. Loads. Yeah. You've still got another 3 decades ahead of you, I'm afraid, if you want to carry on in this sport. So,
which I was just to kind of touch back on the karting thing as well. Like, I mean, there's a big push at the minute, and this is kind of getting off track. This is like this is more of an FIA kind of thing that they need to look at. But back when it's like karting's being decimated, right? Because all the, you know, especially senior karting, it's like if you're not in a race car at 14, 15, then you know, your chance of getting to Formula One's over. But there was a time when guys like Ayrton Senna and Michael Schumacher and these big names, they stayed in karting until they're 18, 19. It was so good for the sport because then senior karting was bolstered because you had all these young guys coming up from bigger grids and things like that. And then when they went to, and this is the other thing I'll say for senior karting, when you're a 16-year-old and you're racing against a 30-year-old in a go-kart who's a professional factory driver, you learn a hell of a lot. You become a man, right? Because you're racing against men. If you leave karting before, race guys who are 15 in cars, race guys who are 17 in cars, and then suddenly you get to IndyCar, Formula One, and you're racing against these, you know, 30-plus-year-olds. There is value in that, and I'd like to see some changes on that front. You know, in terms of, you know, let's try and, you know, kind of get back to where we were a little bit, and you know, promote the grassroots a little bit more.
It is, I like it. I like it. That's one thing one of my drivers said when he went to WEC. This was Stanaway again. And you see drivers in there like Stefan Mucker, people like that, and he was racing with him, and he was like, I can't believe the knowledge of that man. The way they give the feedback and their intelligence, it's way superior to what you think. Like, oh my, how am I going to keep up with this? So you're right, that again is someone coming in who's young, who sees someone who's been there around, and then he grew that side of his game massively because of it. So yeah, I totally agree.
And that was interesting for me because I remember when I went into karting, into senior karting when I was, you know, 15 or 16, and then I remember racing a guy called Baz Lammers who he did a few car races, I think, but he was karting world champion and really, really good driver. And I remember racing against him and thinking, he was a lot older than me, very experienced, paid to be a professional kart driver. And I remember like looking at him and racing against him and thinking, wow, this is a pro, right? Yeah. And then you go to Formula Renault and suddenly you're racing against guys who are your own age again or younger. And it's actually, if you just stay a little bit longer on that side and end up racing against the older guys and the big boys, there is an advantage to when you come back to, you know, when everyone's the same kind of age.
Smaller. Yeah, they seem like that.
It seems like you don't look up to, you know, you don't look up to someone your own age the same as you would look up to somebody who, you know, has been around the block. And like you say, that technical knowledge and that just being around forever, right? So I think there's value in that.
Good. Yeah, play with the big boys. It is even in tennis. It's like you want to play with someone, against someone, or train against someone who's better than you, and it just pulls you along quicker. It's the age-old philosophy. Right, Jack, we better go. Better get back to the show. But thanks for taking the time. You're in Charlotte. I know you're starting racing again soon, but I'll let you go in your empty flat you've got there, and so you can focus. But thanks for spending the time and giving these kids some knowledge. It really helps.
Cheers. Thanks for having me on, bud.
Thanks. Okay, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that. Now, as you can imagine, as a coach, I'm trying to teach things that I've learned along the way, things I've seen firsthand, but there's always a bit in the back of your mind, you're a coach. But that's why I have to bring people on like this that have actually done it. They've done it, they've lived it, they've walked it for the last 10, 15 years. He's lived it. And they're the kind of people that you learn from and really start to spin the cogs in your own head, but also give you a bit of self-belief. Because as you're sat there at home, maybe not with a drive, I don't know what level, it depends what you're on, but it can get very demoralizing. And your family's telling you to get serious, get a job, go back to school or whatever. And you know you've got this burning desire and you've shown probably that on track you can do it. You've proven it. And now and then you need to listen to these kind of people that have done it, that are exactly the same as you, believe it or not. You'll see them in a different light. These people that are up there, but they're just the same as you. But they had the break, they had the skill, they had the determination to do it, and they got through. And it really is, you've heard it to death. If you watch anything I put out, it's all motivation and all that, but it's not there just to pump you up and say this is what it could be. It's actually telling you again, over and over again, you can go and do it. It just needs massive action. It just needs you to put yourself out there to improve your skills and to make this a craft, because it really is. So you are perfecting it. You're getting better and better every single day towards something, and you're talking to people all the time. You're telling everybody out there in this world, I'm pointing to my window, by the way, in this world, this is what I want, and I'm determined to do anything I can. And also, while you're telling them that, you give them some kind of benefit for them. So it's in their interest to help you do it. And that's what you've got to really do, is wake up every single day. If you're at the bottom now, you've got 10 quid, you've got $10 or euros in the account, and you want to become a pro driver. All you've got to do, if you're in that situation, is do what I did when I was pizza delivery driving, is somehow even go club racing. I don't care how you get on track. You just get on track. It might not be a sexy championship. It might not be these big expensive ones I've just spoken about. F1, 2, 3 and 4 and the big karting championships. So if you anything, a club championship, which maybe only even runs on one circuit, but you make sure you take that as seriously as you would if you were in F2, F3, F4. You do all the prep, you do all the fitness, all the mental training, you study that track, you talk to everybody, and you make sure you dominate that championship. Because that's the only way you do it. And then you get that win. That's a credit. That's something you can sell to somebody if you shout loud enough, if you're confident enough, that might give you a little opportunity to test their bigger car, the next level up. You do a good job there. Come back to the fact that you've got to be quick. You do a good job, and they just give you either a good price or they'll bend over backwards to get you in the car. They might even charge a teammate extra money to pay for some of your seats. They'll find a way if you can prove it. And that's how it works. And then it just takes someone in the crowd, someone in the pit, to just spot you and say, I can see that person, that driver's got something about them. And that's how it works. And you never know where it's going to come from. So there's a couple of things I noted down from that interview. Was he used the word or the term, I won. So that's important. So when you get an opportunity, it's to maximize that opportunity, which he kind of covered. Timing, which we said, really important again, because you can do all the right things. You can win the championship, but something happens like COVID. Or something happens that stands in your way. A team all of a sudden that you were going for, struggling with money, has to take a paying driver with big bucks. I'm sorry, but if you came last year, it would happen. So there is a little bit of luck, if you want to call it that. But timing is big. If you look at anyone who's succeeded, they happen to stumble upon someone or meet someone at the right time. But the more you're out there, the more you're showing yourself, peacocking, making sure that you look different to most people, making sure that you're on social media big time and they notice you more, then the more chance that you're going to slip into the right timeline for somebody that sees it. So when people say you make your own luck, it's true in this way as well, but it means you're going to make your own luck in timing. So that's another big thing. And something else that we sort of mentioned is the people that you meet along the way. You're not there to just get on with everyone. You're there to inspire everyone. So everyone looks at you, and as soon as you come in that garage, they kind of stand to attention, or they raise their work ethic because they know you're there. When you do that, you've got Billy Bob on the back left, I don't know, whatever name, on the back left wheel. He just does that, or he does the back of the car, the gearbox manufacturer, the mechanic, the engineer of the team, the current team boss you're with. That person will get a promotion at one point. They'll get into a position, if they've got, they'll get into a position where they could give you a break 3 years, 4 years, 10 years down the line. But if they've got a good memory of you, of how you were, they might just pick up the phone. So there's no exact science of how to get to the top. There's just very important ingredients about your self-promotion and how quick you are on track and how good you are at inspiring people. And people around you want you to succeed. But we're talking about cash today. So that's the general way, okay? And people will find the cash with you then if you inspire them. So getting a good manager that doesn't cost much really, but puts effort into you is really important. He had a partner there, or a manager that really put everything on the line. I could tell you all the stories behind this, how far these kids went, because they were kids. They're in their 20s. Him and Chris Harfield, his manager, they went all out. It was both of them on this journey. And if you can find someone like that, that's so valuable. So they're knocking doors as well as you're knocking doors. They're brainstorming ways of getting into that car. Now, they used the scholarship system, which in America is still there, I believe, in Road to Indy, where if you win the championship, you get half the money towards the next championship. And also the championship kind of need to help you get in that big car. Otherwise, it makes it all look a bit farcical, doesn't it? And we had it before with Robin Friends and many others in Formula Renault. So you win Formula Renault and you get $500,000 towards Formula Renault 3.5. And then if you won that, it was a good prestigious thing to win. And it should help you get towards F1. So I'd look for them as well. Is there any kind of motorsport you could do, even if it's oval racing, it doesn't matter, that kind of gives you a scholarship up? And even with a race team, if you say to a race team, okay, what can you offer me for next year if I win this year? And have that in the contract. So they could say, if you finish in the top 3, we'll knock X amount off. If you finish in the top 3, we'll give you a free drive. Now, can you imagine that? Then you know what the game is, how to win that. You just got to perform. But there's so many ways you can get money. We're talking about money. Sponsorship is it's a word that's thrown around a lot, but it's not easy. It's not the easiest way, actually. Because if you think about now, we've got the Facebook, we've got all these different ways that a company can advertise to prospective customers for like $10. And they're going to get, if it's done right, they're going to get about 100 to 1,000 clicks with that $10. Clicks mean people that are interested in your product that might follow through. So that it increases your website traffic and you know all the benefits of that. But also, you put that $10 in and you make $40 back through sales, the company will do it again. And this is what you're against. Now, if a company was to give you $10 for a sticker on the car, I bet you'd give them a sticker about that big. And how much custom would they get from it? 0. You know, even if don't know how wide this lens goes, even if it's this big or complete cover in the car, I bet you still might not make the company 40 quid. So we've got to really be honest about how much value am I providing a company in order for me to have the balls to ask them for like 300 grand or whatever and just say, I'm going to put you on here, I'm going to put you on my social media. Great, but companies are switched on now. They're switched on to say, okay, but how much is it going to get me? What's the media value of that coverage on your car? How many customers do you think I'll get from it? And how can I measure it? And these kind of questions will make you freak the hell out. You won't be able to answer them. Gone are the days of like you being exposed all over TV and just having a sticker on the car has got some kind of value. You're probably racing something that hasn't, that's invisible. So sponsorship's really hard. The only way you can really get sponsorship is on the investment route, like he did, like Jack did. He got on the investment route and sold shares, created a company and sold shares in that company. So if he makes it, then they get paid out, which they're getting paid out now. So it worked. Brilliant. You can do that if the championship's not too expensive, like IndyCar, that route or whatever. Not too expensive, and they can see that it's possible and they believe in you and you sell it right. You've got to get people to believe in you. So in the investment side helps. And obviously I've got a few drivers now that are being invested in by wealthy people that want them to win. It's like investing in a racehorse. They want them to win. And if they do win, the slight chance that they do, they get some money back. Brilliant. But really they're on the journey with you. So that does exist. But you have to be a certain driver that is really fast and inspires people and is going to go all the way. But sponsorship on any kind of way is a numbers game. You've got to really research your target, know what is valuable to them, know their likes and their dislikes. Make sure you talk to them in a way that gives them something that they really want. And speaking to a sponsorship agency recently, they said what they find is it's easier for a race driver to sell sponsorship with us, bring companies that are interested in advertising on a football shirt. Because football's got more exposure, and if we find a company owner that likes football, there's a lot more of them that like motorsport. We'll broker the deal, we'll make sure it works, and then if it does go through, we'll give the driver some money. So then, as a driver, you're basically saying, which sports are companies more interested in? Football, rugby, you name the sports that people are more interested in sponsoring than motorsport. So if I'm a driver, I've got a sponsor, my dad's friend or someone else, I think I can sell that bit of the shirt, which is probably going to be about 200k for the year, but they'll also get commission from every shirt that's sold, so that company can earn money straight away, so it's a business model behind it. All these things. I can sell that easier than a sticker on the car. Then driver, listen to me, sell that. If you can sell that for 200k on this Premier League football top or rugby or cricket or whatever, and you make 50% of the commission off that, you're going to probably make about 60k, but all you did was say, Bob, meet this sports agency. They can get you in front of hundreds of thousands of millions of people. Meet them, and that's all you've done, by the way, and then you get paid. So I want you to really understand that you've got to have something good to sell. Selling space on a car is not easy, because it's just not worth anything. We busted our balls to get a driver some sponsorship for Indy 500. Easy. Come on. Indy 500 is seen by so many people. It'd be easy, man. We'll get so much. It was so difficult. We made thousands. This is actually WHSG again. Made thousands of calls to companies. And they did get some, but it took such a lot of work because motorsport is difficult. And that brings me to something I must remember, is don't feel like the sport owes you something, because motorsport is a very expensive sport for ultra wealthy people. So they can come in, write a check, and they're in the car. That's not something to bitch about. That's something you just got to come to terms with. It's the way it is in that world. So if you say, and you get jealous of people that can just come in and pay, what's that going to do? Ask yourself better questions. Okay, they're paying and getting in. It's just the way it is. It's like life. People with more money that are born into money, they have advantages. But if you haven't got that money, you're going to have to create your own advantages. You're going to have to work 3 times, 4 times, 10 times harder than that person did. But so what? Nothing to do with you. You are on your own journey. If you've got a massive goal, like being to F1, put the blinkers on. I know people say you shouldn't do this, but put the blinkers on. Focus on just you. You've got a mathematical equation of how much money you need to provide, and you've got to sort this out. You've got to figure out how you can climb that ladder with all that money, 6.4 mil, if you're starting from 8 years old, or come up with a plan where you don't have to. Come up with a clever plan. You can start to think to yourself, okay, research time. What ways did people get into F1? This person actually came from GTs. Oh my God. How did they do that? Speak to them. How did you do it? And they're going to tell you the same thing we told you today, but still, you never know. Now they know your name. You see, some people, they came from America IndyCar and that way. There's different routes, especially now when it's all on its arse and no one knows the history the future of where it's going to go. You've got to think outside the box and think, how can I get there? What do I need to do? I need to win. How can I win? Get in a championship I can afford. Dominate it. Absolutely obliterate everybody in it. And as I'm doing it, make so much noise that everybody hears me. And then the next time, by the time it's even June, this time of year, even earlier, I'm already planning. I'm already speaking to people about the next year. You've got to be quite cocky, and you've got to be very self-assured to pull this off. If you are a timid mouse and you've got this big dream, but you only look at it and you're a bit scared to even talk to anyone, it's not going to happen. I promise you. It is survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest and providing value to people that can open up opportunities. Mate, people out there, you've got to take this on. Right, so calling people up. It's another little note I've made. I don't see enough of it. I want you to be an expert on the industry. I've put some prices out there right now. But if you've got a certain championship in mind, I want you to speak to every single team in the championship that you're aiming for. Every team. You become a manager. You become an expert on how much it costs, all their contact details, if there's an opportunity, how many seats are available, and how you, as a person, can get into their car. I tell you what, the amount of people, the amount of teams I phoned up said, I've got no money, but I'll win. And it worked. It really did. If I did it hard enough, long enough to enough people, one of them would say, okay, we got a test next week at wherever. Come and join us. Obviously, you need to have won something before that, so they've kind of heard of your name before. But if you're that cocky, because no one else is doing this to them, no one else is calling up. Most people are calling up and they're saying, how much does it cost? And they're starting there, and that's it. But you're there. I'm determined. I have got history. This is probably year 2 or 3 if you're just starting out. I've got these wins. I know I can do it. Let me in your car. What does it take? What's it going to take for me to get in your car? Just see how they answer. And if they think you're cocky or whatever and put the phone down, fine. You can try a different way. You can go and see them. But you've got to knock on doors. Just like any salesman with their own product, an entrepreneur with a product, and they know it's the bomb. They know this is perfect. Everybody would want this. They are grabbing people around the neck trying to get them to just try this product. You've got to be the same as to be a race driver. And as I say, a lot of drivers are not. They're too timid. So if you do this, you'll stand out. And if you're quick, it's perfect. It's the Mansell way. Mansell used to, I remember hearing a story of Mansell because he was living not far from me. He was in this room with other drivers, and he'd just stand in the middle of the room and saying, I'll destroy all of you. A bit like Muhammad Ali. And there was a sponsor in there, and it worked. A manager, actually, who could put him in with sponsors and did. It worked. It's like, I want him. And then obviously he had the skills to back it up. So you've got to go out there. If this goal means enough to you, and it is a dream, you've got to chase it with everything. Like, this is your last day alive. How can I get this? I've got to achieve this before the day's out. How could I do it? And you have a to-do list that actually is the kind of jobs that push your comfort zone, the kind of jobs that will make you phone someone up. And this is what it's going to take every day. And I know that inside of you right now, you're prepared to do it. But when you wake up tomorrow, I want you to do it. Or today, if you're watching in America, what can you do today, now? That will push your comfort zone, but it will make a ripple in the motorsport world so more people have heard of you. In a decent way, of course. Right, that comes down to another note. Race in anything. I think I've kind of covered it, but if you think there's a championship that's beneath you, you deserve more, but you can't afford the next one, stay in the championship or do that championship. I advise it if you can afford it. It's like, yeah, I can afford it, but man, I need to dominate every race and make as much noise as I can. It's the kind of Rosenquist kind of way. I think it was like 6 years he was in F3 for. And by the time he was in the 4th year, people were saying, dude, you better move on or do something. Give up. And then because he did German F3 and then the maybe the Euro, but then it became just the FIA F3 before it went to the F1 weekends. And he just stayed there over and over again because he had another option. And in the end, he won it and he got a good rep. And now he's just in anything. He's in IndyCar, he did Formula E. He's got so many job offers. But if he'd given up and thought he was too big for F3, I want F2 or nothing, then he would not be on the screens now. So think about that. Keep in the car no matter what it is. Even if it's a Fiat Uno or a Ford Fiesta. If it's all you can do, do it. And then, because going around in circles is always going to be better than staying at home. Because you have just 6 months or a year at home, everybody in the industry forgets who you are. It's crazy, but it is. You've got to keep batting, because they forget very quickly. Build yourself like a company. Yeah, basically you are a company. So you could set up a company. in your name, Joe Bloggs Racing. That is the actual entity that sponsors are going to invest in. It's a limited company, then it's tax deductible. You put all your prize money in there and everything, so you run it like a business. That's something else we'll speak about in the future, but that's something really important that Jack mentioned again. And before I forget, this is for a good friend of mine, Jared Lawson, who's the dad of Liam Lawson, and I saw a photo of him today. I was like, mate, you've got to show. Can I show this on my show that's live tonight? And it's a beautiful picture, and it's him. It just backs up what Jack just said about lad and dad going racing. And in New Zealand, it's more common than Europe, obviously. So here is Liam Lawson on the right, number 30, with his dad and Jared. And Jared's like, he's still there now like that, in terms of he's in the ear. He wants his son to succeed. He sees what his son's got. But there you go. That's kind of, it's their elite level, but it's club racing. And there's lots of Caleb. There's Matt Payne, I think, is in there as well. And that guy, number 30, is a Red Bull Junior driver. And they didn't have the money to do it. How did he do it? I should have done an interview. I didn't think. Should have done an interview with him, but he won. And when you watched him, this is what I noticed. When you watch Liam on track, you know there's something special. You can see the car dancing. In the wet, he just destroys everybody. His racecraft is unbelievable. And that sticks. That sticks so much that investors see it and they want to be a part of it because they know he's going somewhere, or he deserves to. He deserves to go all the way, by the way. It's not just my opinion, it's fact. And when you see that he came from them beginnings, he couldn't even really afford F4. Normal family, just like what I'm from. Normal family, working class family, but still he's on the journey. And we don't know if he's going to make it because, like we said, there's so many things. Timing. Is there enough seats available when he's ready at his peak? Does the car break down so he doesn't win things? There's so many things that have to align, but he's got a good chance. And he came from that. So it is possible. So if you're thinking, oh, Jack Hawksworth did it 5 years ago, he didn't get to F1. He still got to IndyCar for 3 years. He could have gone to F1, actually. He had a few chances, but it just didn't align right. This kid nowadays, he was only in F4 2 years ago, so he's pretty damn current. He's on a program that can take him all the way if it all stays as is, because we don't know what's happening. So it's all possible. So I gave you them figures to kind of wake you up and shock you, but actually I'll tell you them. There's some people out there, I don't know if I covered it in the video, I can't remember if I cut it or not. There's some people out there that have actually paid more than them figures that I've shown you. They paid a lot more than F3 than 800 just to make sure they're in a good position. And the team knows that they've got wealth. So the team say, yeah, pay us. So them figures are big, but they could be bigger. But just rest assured, if you work hard, if you've got the skill, if you make sure you're racing just anything you can, even a wheelbarrow, a bloody lawnmower, but you're winning and you're making enough noise, you might just have a chance. Now I'm just going to quickly click over to see if there's been any more questions. Somebody said about something about accident damage and when you stop paying. To be fair, it never stops. F3, F2, you can still pay your damage. I think it stops at F1. IndyCar, sometimes the teams will say, don't worry, we'll cover accident damage. And WEC, they can say that, World Endurance, but really it's only the top that will pay for damage, the top championship. And even then, damage hurts you in a different way. It costs you in a different way. If you cause damage in a big car, okay, you might have to pay for it, but the boss knows that you damage cars. And if you damage another car and it's cost him another 300 grand to repair it, you're not going to be standing in good stead for the next year. So it always costs you something. But yeah, crash damage in England and Europe, we use insurance, but teams, the prices I quoted you there, teams will include insurance in that. The only thing you have to pay is the excess. And the excess might be like the first 8 grand of damage you pay. Then the insurance pay from 8 to about 30, and then you pay above that. So it's crap insurance, really. But I don't blame the insurance companies. They could bump if they did everything covered. So yeah, usually insurance and things like that is covered. Just running through the questions. Sorry if I've missed some of you. Just wondering if you got my email. Sorry, mate, probably did. Send it again, enzo@enzomucci.co.uk. Please do, if I didn't answer. Ego Fraga. Yeah, brilliant story. So why not go on that? There's different ways into motorsport. Now, we did an esports championship recently called it only finished last night, the Ultimate E-Driver Series. And we did the May Isolation May Championship before that. And we gave drivers money that won if they had a sponsored car of ours. So we gave them a way of earning money through iRacing. And it's our goal to set up another championship where people can join. And from there, we can give them some kind of foothold in motorsport, whether it's a test, whether it's a season paid for. I don't know. We were just in the brainstorming phase. But it's my goal to use sim racing to bring people into racing, give them a chance. Jan Mardenborough did it with the GT Academy. And obviously Fraga, who was a PlayStation boss, he's racing against Liam Lawson this year, and he did last year, in TRS as well. So that's good. But people again said about Fraga, his work ethic is amazing because he wants it. Just like Lawson. If you're not really from a privileged background and you can't really afford that to be born into that arena of yacht racing and being on your own yacht and motorsport, you've got a bit of grit about you. You've got a fighter's attitude. You've got the killer instinct, and it's in the eyes and you can see it. F1 bosses look for that. Don't know if you remember me saying about Eric Bullier when I used to work for him at Renault F1. I said, what are we looking for? Because I was the talent scout for them for their junior program. What are we looking for in drivers? And he said, when I look them in the eye, I want to feel like they want to kill me. Cool. Okay. Got him to explain. Basically, he needs someone who is tough because they won't survive. Because F1 is a pressure cooker. If you watch the F1 Netflix season 2, what's it called? Something dry? I can't remember. And you see what the drivers have to go through there and how much pain. And Gasly is a great story. It's like, it's a pressure cooker. So if you really haven't got the killer instinct, he'll get there. But if you haven't got that killer instinct and tough enough to survive, you never will. And that's no good to a manufacturer. A manufacturer needs a robot. And a robot that's kind of like the Terminator. They execute. Don't kill people, but they execute on what needs to be done, and they're reliable. You put that driver in a car, you know what to expect. If the driver's a bit up and down, if the driver's a bit emotional, if the driver is not really calculated or not helping the car grow, no use. And they've got to trust that you're not going to smash up that car that's costing millions and embarrass the sponsor. You spend all your junior racing proving that you are that person. So every time you touch the track, I want you to think of that. I want you to understand, not just before you go into the car, but as you do a debrief from the race weekend, was I the kind of driver, looking at your results and how you were in your debrief, was I the kind of driver that deserves a shot to F1? If not, why? How can I improve that for the next race? That's something for another video. That's more on the personal performance side. But still, it's valid. They're looking for someone who won't embarrass them. If they put that Mercedes or BMW or Red Bull or whatever on your chest, you cannot embarrass them. It's worth too much. Branding to a company at that level is pretty much what they're in it for. There's a little bit of technical innovation, but really it's branding. I want you to sell my cars. We need you to help us sell more cars or sports or energy drinks. That's all we're in it for. Come on, it's not a charity. Something else to think about. So become pro now. If you want to be an F1 driver, be an F1 driver now, because there's something that's really important to remember is when that F1 driver, you see them, future F1 driver, they're in F4 now. I think I've said this, sorry, but you just know. You just know that that person is going somewhere. I saw it in Jenson Button when he was in British F3. As soon as I met him, that boy's going all the way. And I did it to Bianchi, and it's not me, I'm not special. It's just bloody obvious because you can see they act now as they would then. as they will then. And they don't change a lot. Honestly, I've seen these 16-year-olds, and somehow they've got high in motorsport because of cash or whatever. I'm like, bloody hell, that's pretty lucky. And they've still got the traits they had back then. So you can spot it when they're young. It doesn't go. We don't change as much as we like to think we do. We get better, we get calmer, we get more focused, but still the characteristics are there. So something else to remember. Right, one more question. How do I attract F1 junior teams when racing SEA Formula 4? You dominate it, like we said. Absolutely destroy everybody. You work your tail off, Mr. Vignesh. Sorry if I didn't say that right. You work your tail off, you destroy everybody, and you get everybody and yourself to shout about it. Everyone's got to hear it. You do this often enough. Social media, mate. That wasn't there when I was in my generation. It wasn't there. You had to pick up the phone. You had to go to the press. I used to write my own press releases, and they used to do it word for word. I used to make it sound amazing. Enzo dominated, and it was only just a close win, or I got second. But still, you have to shout. You've got websites now, which we didn't have. You've got social media, and you bet you're only posting maybe once a day. And it kind of talks about your racing, but then talks about something else. No, you've got to be through and through. I've got to get attraction. Wake up in the morning. What is my action for attraction today? How can I attract the people that could give me an opportunity? Write it down. Brainstorm. You wake up in the morning, right? This is to everybody. You wake up in the morning. You make sure you get this right first. Go out for a jog. You listen to music that pumps you up. You're grateful for everything you've got in this world. You know this is your chance. And then you get back home. You have a shower. And you get to work. And then you start to write your to-do list. If I wanted to attract people in the next rung of the ladder, because it's hard to attract F1, obviously, when you're in F4, but you never know. Once a week, you can send them something. But how do I attract the next rung of the ladder? What can I do today? Is it just a post? Is it me calling one of them teams again? Yes, again. Like the Sylvester Stallone, he called up 1,500 different agencies in Hollywood to sell Rocky. There's not even 1,500 agencies. He just called up 1,500 times. So the same 200 over and over and over and over again until someone broke down and said, oh, come on, just meet me, whatever. Jason Plato did the same. British touring car driver. He chased and nearly dragged out the car, Frank Williams, when Frank Williams had a British touring car team to get that drive. This never stops. Even when you think you've made it, you've still got to try and get a seat for next year. Because your team might be going bankrupt or something, you're left on your own. I mean, look at Ocon. That is a driver who's really quick and deserving to be there, but all of a sudden found himself without a seat. He's back now, luckily, but still, you're never safe. This is like being a warrior, really. Like being in business. I always refer to business, don't I? But as a gladiator, the more times you're put in that ring in the Colosseum to fight, you've got a chance of dying, right? And the longer you go, the more that chance gets. It's like it should be next time now. Surely I'm gonna get eaten by the lion this time. It's the same in racing, same in business. The longer you go, the more chance of failure. So I want you to understand that being in F4 now, looking up how do I attract, these are nice problems. When you start to get higher, which you know what to do now, yeah? You know what to do about getting up, get attraction and win. But when you get higher, there's more people that want that piece of cake. There's more pressure. So if you make have an accident or do something wrong, you can get the sack easier. So there's lots that's going to pile on top of your head. There's people phoning up and saying, if you don't win, you're out. And it's like, oh, that's not very good for my mind. Deal with it. It's just the way it is. More pressure as you go up. So I'd say be a bit grateful for these little problems of, I'm in this little championship, how do I get attention? All you have to do is win, 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 and make a lot of noise, but also talk to people on the phone every day. Have a big spreadsheet. Chris, if you're watching this, I remember Tarhan, we're doing a big spreadsheet of all the teams, and we're smashing through that spreadsheet and saying, right, this is that team. I spoke to them then. This is how much it cost. And you become an expert on it. But in doing that, you're talking to teams. So talk to teams and win. I can't put any more value on that, to be fair. Right, let's have a look. Anyone else? More questions before I go? No, I don't think so. I hope it's been valuable. After this, or straight away, send me questions and it'll set up different shows coming up. But yeah, it costs a fortune. It really does. 6.5 million from an 8-year-old. But there are ways to do it. And you can still get with good teams in these championships if they think you're fast enough and worth investing in. Because now and then, you get a race team that gets a big sponsor. And I say now and then, it's every year. There's a race team that's got a big sponsor. And that gives them the luxury of saying, right, we need a performance driver. Now we've got a sponsor ourselves, we can find a driver that is worthy of putting in our car for like half of what it would cost, or absolutely free. I think I mentioned in my video, we've had big drives. I think Grosjean, we did it for a price that anyone could afford it out there that's watching this, believe it or not. F2, called GP2 then, because they knew he could win. And they needed to win to get their name back up the top. And they had financial back-in. So you calling up teams all the time, being a bit cocky, telling them what you can do and then showing them what you can do if they give you that chance, it will open up a door, because they'll be in a financial position where they can actually back you or charge other drivers in the team more money. They'll make it work. It always comes down to that. Valtteri Bottas is another one. I've only trained with him a few times, but he didn't come from money, made it. Had the right people behind him to help him, but really at a point where he didn't have much cash. He couldn't really afford to pay his trainers at one point, I remember. But still, he's there now next to Hamilton. And those stories are everywhere. So it is possible to do it, but you've got to be fast and you've got to make a lot of noise. In the right way, of course. Okay, everybody. Thank you for listening, watching, and putting up with me for this long. I hope there's one piece of value in here, one piece of information. And I'm away for 20 days now because we've got 3 F1 weekends in a row, F3 weekends in a row. So I'll be back after that, and maybe we'll do a show while we're out there. Thank you again, and peace out.